Welcome to Life is But a Stream, the web show for tech leaders who need real-time insights. I'm Joseph Morais, technical champion and data streaming evangelist here at Confluent. My goal? Helping leaders like you harness data streaming to drive instant analytics, enhance customer experiences, and lead innovation. Today, I'm talking to Ethan Chan, co-founder and CEO of Allium. In this episode, we'll find out what it takes to build a business on real-time data. We'll break down how data streaming has become a core part of Allium's product strategy, why partnering with vendors turned out to be a smarter, more cost-effective solution, and how Ethan rallied both his engineers and customers around a real-time vision. But first, a quick word from our sponsor.
Your data shouldn't be a problem to manage. It should be your superpower. The Confluent data streaming platform transforms organizations with trustworthy, real-time data that seamlessly spans your entire environment and powers innovation across every use case. Create smarter, deploy faster, and maximize efficiency with the true data streaming platform from the pioneers in data streaming.
Welcome back. Joining me now is Ethan Chan, co-founder and CEO of Allium. How are you today, Ethan?
Doing great. Thanks for having me on board. Yeah.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Let's jump right into it. What do you and your team do at Allium?
We are a blockchain data platform company. We take in all the blockchain data and ingest it, normalize it, standardize it, map it to different use cases, and serve it to our customers. If you think about what Bloomberg did for financial data, open financial data, if you think about what Google did for public web page data, we are doing the same thing for blockchain data. We are organizing the world's blockchain data, making it accessible for customers and people obviously in the blockchain crypto space who need to understand what activity is happening, to financial institutions like Visa who need to understand the stablecoin movements, and also the public sector, right? Like how do you put good policy? How do you regulate this digital asset industry? So all of them have the same underlying element that they need really good high-performance blockchain data.
And is it specific to cryptocurrency, or are there applications of blockchain that are outside of that?
Think of it as a Turing machine, as a computer. So whatever happens in the blockchain of a currency is a smart contract that what someone defines that this has value, that a group of people define that has value. A smart contract is just a small subset of it, and we have a lot of customers of ours building their applications on top of this globally distributed computer, and we work very closely with them because the blockchains are mainly optimized for writing data to the blockchain and not reading data from the blockchain, and that's really where Allium plays it. Anytime your application needs to read the state of my wallet, my balance, they can read the data of Allium.
That's fantastic. So, and just to kind of tie it together for me personally, all of this data, because it's on a blockchain, is out there publicly, but being able to consume all of that data across many blockchains, across many different currencies, and turning it into meaningful information. That's what Allium does. Yes,
that's correct. So I think there are a couple hundred blockchains out there already. Sure. We have nearly 100 of them. There are probably more than 100 million different tokens out there with different prices. And there's like petabytes and petabytes of data. It's only growing over time. Someone has to go in and organize all of that and make it manageable.
So who are your customers and who aren't your customers?
Software engineers who need to read really high performance data to power their applications like wallets, like the trading apps or even real-time monitoring systems. We also serve analysts, right? So who wants to understand like relative market share, is a token trending up, trending down, should I buy, should I not buy? And also thirdly, we also serve a lot of accounting and auditing use cases whereby people who are trading on the blockchain or understanding what's happening, they want to make sure that they don't go to jail, right? So they have all their data in one place so that they can reconcile their finances in one single place, in one single ledger.
Fantastic. So I know that you guys are all in on data streaming, and I know we're going to today's conversation, we're really going to get in depth, but at a high level, what is your company's product strategy around data streaming, or how is data streaming involved in your product strategy?
Internal data streaming allows us to pass all the data within our own data systems. In more on like the quote unquote, like growing the revenue and growing the customer base, it's very crucial because a lot of our customers demand real-time data, right? And they want to control the logic they put on top of the data, on top of the blockchain data. How it relates to a business is that anytime, if you think about our customers who need data streaming, they want to know, like, give me the latest balances, give me the latest transactions for these sets of wallet addresses I care about. That's where that real-time use case and being able to control their own rules on top of the if this then that on top of the data streams is very important for them and us as well.
right? So internally, it's about the coupling microservices, producers and consumers, but externally to your customers, it's about how do I provide that data to them? That's
Yes.
that's a really good strategy. So we've set the stage. So let's dive deeper into the heart of your data streaming journey in our first segment. So Ethan, tell me, what have you built or are currently building with data streaming?
When we first came into this industry 3 to 4 years ago, having spent a lot of time in the data infrastructure and the machine learning space, right? I think what we saw of how people needed to access real-time data in this industry was more like polling. The limitations for continuous polling and webhooks is that they're just not to the level of guarantees, enterprise guarantees that
Right.
this industry is expecting as it matures, like as it grows. The problem with webhooks is that whenever your webhook goes down, like you don't know what messages you miss, right?
Sure.
And so now let's say you're a bank, you're a custodian custodying all these assets, you're building these like risk monitoring rules. If you miss a transaction, you don't even know that you missed it. That's not very good. So that's really our journey into this space. And that was when we were one of the companies or earlier companies in the space that say, hey, like we're not going to reinvent the wheel. That's a very well-known framework that already does it very well and doing data streaming and doing data delivery in real-time stream sharing. And that's how we ended up on the Kafka choice. Yeah.
Got you. So you have mechanisms to go to those webhooks to grab that data, but then when you're presenting it, you're using data streaming as that intermediate layer that has all of those enterprise scaling and all of those consistency features.
I think the nuance there, we actually do work very closely with the RPC nodes to get the data out as soon as possible. And then yes,
Right.
In terms of like fanning it out to different destinations and sharing with our customers or even internal microservices that you mentioned, like that's we use data streaming for that.
So what inspired you to originally use data streaming? Was there a specific tipping point?
Specifically on data streaming, I mean, like at the previous company I was at, wasn't a founder, but as one of the earlier engineers there, and I remember that I had a teammate or a colleague that was managing all the data streaming services, right? It was very painful, right? And so that was when I always knew that at least specifically on that tipping point, like if we ever did any data streaming, we would try and work with a provider that we could trust and rely on. Yeah.
Well, that's great because my follow-up is going to be why Confluent.
I would definitely say my own personal journey as a developer engineer, as that early days, I always say I can build that myself. This is an open source library. I can host it, don't pay that vendor or whatever, right? I used to have that, you can build, I know how to build it. And then when you realize that you have to do migrations, you have to maintain stuff 24/7, there are a lot of random edge cases you don't know until you deploy into production, right? What happens if your node goes down? Do you have redundancy? All this little things that honestly burn your weekends away, especially if you're breaking such a critical system, because normally streaming happens almost at the extreme left, right? So if you break that system, every other engineering company is going to complain, and you just become infamous, right? For no reason, right? So,
Right.
and a lot of that normally happens when you try and host it yourself. And again, I am sure there are experts that could do it pretty easily, but I think most people aren't experts, and that was why we definitely always wanted to go for a managed service from the get-go.
Absolutely, especially when you have if it becomes your critical system of record, right? And some people aren't that far into data streaming, but when they are, you find that this becomes something that can't break. So why not pass that off to somebody who's made it, as unbreakable as it possibly can? And then of course having that level of support if things do go awry, which I hope they never do. Now, I know Allium has become a huge standout in the Confluent for Startups program. The way I understand it, you guys discovered Confluent Cloud and just started, with our free trial, and then eventually were issued $20,000 worth of credits as part of that program. And I know you guys have grown to a six-figure commitment with Confluent, which is unbelievably exciting. So tell me how you got started in the program and what drove that level of investment and growth.
Confluent had a lot of connectors already built, right? And one of the critical connectors was with Snowflake, right? So the question is not whether or not can you do it, is whether should you do it. That's always that's really the driving behind a lot of the decisions we make now. It's Yeah, we could write our own connector. Yeah, but do we want to maintain it 24/7? Do we want to do that? And like I think Confluent, I mean, with all the various connectors that you guys already had, like we connect to Snowflake, BigQuery, Databricks as well, right? So that's a lot of, like, I know, like with the brand and the long tail of integrations, like I never have to worry about that. So that was a big plus, right? What also drove more usage is that 2 years ago, we probably only had, I want to say, 3 blockchains on our platform. Ethereum, is it Polygon, maybe Solana to some extent. And now we have close to 100. I think we're close to 85 or 86 right now, and probably going to hit 100 pretty soon, right? So just to give you a sense, so we have like more than 10, 20x the number of, actually 30x the number of blockchains since we first started on Confluent. And then the third phase is that, like, a lot of customers started to realize that, like, look, webhooks are not going to cut it, right? Like I get it. Webhooks, I'm a developer. I know how to use a webhook really quickly, get stuff going. But like, if something happened on a blockchain, I need to at least know it happened, right? If my system goes down, I can replay the history, so I can actually reconcile my data again. And so those are the very valuable pieces what Confluent and Kafka provides, and that's why that really drove a lot of the growth. So to recap, connectors, explosion of data size, right? The number of chains, and also just like the industry maturing and saying that, look, like, we cannot build mission critical systems on top of webhooks anymore.
You know, before they were your customers, like, what were these businesses, what were the real challenges that you said, you know what, we need to build a company around this?
Imagine that everything that the blockchain spits out is it's structured, but it's also like anyone can write any dumb smart contract into the blockchain, like anyone, right? Again, there are 85 different blockchains, of which there are like maybe 10 different bigger ecosystems. Think of a different ecosystem as a different operating system, right? So when Windows, Linux, even within the Linux ecosystem, you know, that's different forks. You have Red Hat, you have, you know, different like variations there. So imagine now, like, you have so many different operating systems, right? Different types of blockchains out there, and there's also some sort of like social agreement standard of like everybody agrees that certain smart contracts means this is a transfer of real money. But then whenever there's a huge problem of fragmentation of understanding like what happened across all the different ecosystems, and like normalizing and standardizing that. And so the key insight that we saw is that, like, people don't want to go in and like be an expert in every single operating system, right, as a blockchain system, and then parse the data and then map it to the use case that that they're eventually trying to solve. So let me talk about what these real world use cases are. For example, Visa is one of our customers. They just want to know what are the stablecoin volume transfers across different blockchains and across different currencies, stablecoins out there, right? There's a currency backed by real money, I mean, real US dollars somewhere, or some sort of dollars by some bank somewhere. And they want to just know, like, for the, 50 different blockchains out there, like, how is money getting transferred around? They want to know what the activity is. Of course, because Visa is one of the biggest payment networks in the world, right? So they want to know what's happening. And a lot of customers like that, the thesis, the insight was that, like, I was pretty sure that there was no way that a lot of these folks would not come in and try and like hire like 10, 20 engineers, parse everything out, normalize it, and then pay. You said 6-figure, but the total spend is way more than 7 figures across all infrastructure services, right? Just to be able to answer a very simple question of like, hey, like, how much volume was transferred in the past 24 hours, right? Like that, just to answer that very simple question, there's so much data margin that goes behind it. And like my thesis was that very simple, that if you build a very efficient company, you can execute well, and you can do this once and again, sell it multiple times, right? And really that was the core insight, right? And like, I just think that at the heart of it, like the emotional heart of why we did this is because, like, I used to be a data scientist at some point as well. And like, the bane of their job is cleaning the data.
Yes.
Right? No one wants to clean the data.
No, they want the good stuff.
They want the good stuff. They want to just run their machine learning models, present the really nice metrics, and then like show they grew revenue by 5% and then get a promotion, right? Like that's really what you care about.
Right.
But then 95% of the day is actually figuring out like where the data is and how to clean it, right? So
right. What does this field mean?
What does this field mean? And so for the blockchain, something is very similar that, like, again, maybe not just a data scientist, but like a financial analyst or like a product manager, a growth engineer, right? Whoever who wants to understand more about what's happening, they have to go through all of the same steps. And I think if we can do it better, faster, and cheaper, why should someone not use this, right? So that
No,
was
it
really
makes
the key insight. Yeah.
it makes a lot of sense. So you're like, I realize that in order for these other financial institutions to do this, they're going to have to build these teams, and it's going to be this many people. And this is just to get to the dirty data and then to clean it and to get insights. You're like, I bet if we built something like this, all these other institutions would use it, and they don't have to have their own teams of 10 people just to get the same thing that we're going to try and build. I'm glad you had this insight, because it sounds like you're making it a lot easier for these institutions to get the quality data that they need. And that's something we talk about here, is this idea of data products, right? It's not just having that, that raw data that's hard to classify, doesn't have any metadata. It's about taking that, making sure it's properly classified, making sure that the events are correct, and then, taking multiple streams of data and then converting them or combining them or filtering them or modifying them so that they're usable. And then you have that great downstream data product. So I know you've already talked about integration a bit, especially with Snowflake and Databricks, but what outcomes have you seen or aiming for specifically with stream processing, and then any other integrations that you may not have mentioned yet?
We do a lot of real-time processing. I think we use Apache Beam today for a lot of our real-time stream processing. So imagine like the moment data comes out fresh from the blockchain, we also do a lot of processing. We have a Lambda architecture where we use Snowflake, of course, Databricks for like the DBT hourly builds, but we also have the real-time system for more like mission critical schema, like data schemas we have to parse out. Like real-time balances, real-time transactions, real-time NFT swaps, DEX swaps, NFT trades, DEX swaps. So just to give you a sense of like, those are the types of schemas we have. Our customers, they just want not the raw data, right? Because I like to joke that like, even if we just deliver raw data to our customers, it's the start of your problems. Like if I gave you, even if I gave you the entire corpus of petabytes of raw data for free, or even for free, you would still spend like, I don't know, a couple $100,000 just to store the data on your site. Like so you don't even want to keep it yourself, right? Like who wants to keep that much of data? I think right now we want to do a double check. I think we're doing like 120 megabytes per second of data through Confluent today. So just per second. It also shows that that's kind of where the entire blockchain industry is. It's kind of where broadband was about 10 years ago, maybe, give or take, right? But let's take it one step further, is that like there is no human possible way for Allium to possibly, like fit the million use cases that the blockchain can spit out, right? Because anyone can publish any use case, any smart contract out there. So how do we allow our customers to build on top of already enriched data that we have, and such that we give them the flexibility whereby how do you bring your own transformations and shift left, so to speak, right? I know that's the hot word right now, shift left. And so we are helping a lot of our customers also, hey, I just want to filter on the subset of stuff and then do some simple transformations and then get to, get my answer quicker. And I only care about a sliver of stuff. And then you extend it further. It's like, I want to build an alerting workflow, a monitoring workflow on top of the enriched data. And like, again, that's another downstream, like you feed it another set of conditions. We want to become not just the data platform for this industry, but the data operating system for this industry, right? Like, yeah, so we want to be the operating system for, be it accounting, be it analytics, building power your applications. Like how can we become that operating system for your company? And it's very apt because the blockchain is an operating system, right? So we are the data operating system for this that layer for this industry.
For the audience, shift left, in case you've never heard it, the idea is about bringing stream processing or processing of data closer to the source. Mm-hmm. So in this case, with Allium, they're kind of grabbing all of their data and putting it into data streaming. So, in a lot of ways, that's as close as they can to manipulating that data. They're not going to manipulate it before that. So the idea is that a lot of people nowadays are sending their operational data to analytical systems and doing a lot of that data processing there and building their data products, and then maybe doing something like reverse ETLing it back. But the idea of shifting left is to do more of that processing closer to the source. And there's a lot of advantages to that. One, the people close to the source, the people that are producing the data are usually the ones that know it best. So that's a good thing. Mm-hmm. You can reuse those data products in your operational estate. And then it also reduces a lot of duplication of processing downstream. So I'm curious about like another aspect of the DSP. That's something we talk about here a lot, the data streaming platform. Mm-hmm. How do you approach data governance?
we are the data governance team for a lot of this industry. Not a lot, but like
Absolutely.
a lot of important teams in this industry.
Sure.
And a lot of it comes with data verification.
Yes.
So we made those like investments very early on, very, very, very early on. And people also forget that like verifying your data is almost as expensive as ingesting the data.
Yes.
People don't know that. It's like knowing where you messed up is more expensive than it's the same cost as doing it again. You know what I mean? Like it's not really cost. I mean, there are clever ways to like optimize stuff here and there, but conceptually, like the maintenance you have to do, because right now every few minutes we have an Airflow like DAG orchestrator that we just basically run all the checks. Do all the blocks exist? Do all the transactions exist? Are we missing anything? Does the current block point back to the previous block? Are we missing any transaction hashes? Like do the count stars, like count star for a certain time window and then check it back. So check with other schemas and see whether they all join nicely together. And so it's a lot of work, and we do it for every single one of our 85 blockchains out there. And that's where data governance is. That's the first piece of verifying that your main copy of data your primary copy of data is correct, right? Here's where it gets even more confusing is that we have customers all over the world. We have customers in Asia. We have customers in US Central, US East, US West, on Databricks, on Snowflake, on BigQuery, in Europe. We have to verify that when we replicate our data from our main copy to across the world, like we're also making sure that we're not losing any data, right? Because anytime, my thesis is that anytime you move data from point A to point B, like you have to re-verify when you moved it to another point. Like you have to run a check again. That is also very expensive. And I like to joke that we are sort of like a CDN for the data layer, a lot of the data in this industry.
Interesting.
Right? Because like we actually have to replicate the data across the entire, a lot of different data, like regions across the world, different providers. Because again, let me bring it back to the question of like, which customer wants to store 1 petabyte of data? So internally, I think we had this project that we called Data 360. That was a cooler name than data governance, but like Data 360 was what we called it internally. To see like, hey, this data isn't complete in every single region. And also we have tens of thousands of schemas. We don't want to replicate everything. And so keeping track of what we replicate is also another headache, right? And for us, the data governance takes that like multifaceted global approach. And I do like to joke, maybe we centralize decentralized data, right? And then we decentralize it again by spreading it across the world. So anyway.
Yeah, well, especially with all that replication and distribution of data, you want to make sure you have it right from the beginning. That makes a lot of sense. So let's talk about data sharing, right? I know that is part of the way you deliver to your customers using stream sharing. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, we use data sharing and stream sharing. So FYI, we also do a lot of data sharing in the data warehouse. You know, like every single major data lake data warehouse provider has their own form of bulk data sharing already. So we actually do all of that as well. We'll talk about more on the real-time stream sharing piece. So yeah, we have, I don't know, like I want to say like thousands, I mean, maybe close to 1,000 different like topics that we share across different organizations, across different blockchains, across different schemas today. So a lot of our customers depend on our real-time data feeds to power their own apps or build their own monitoring systems or even reconcile their own internal data system. Sometimes they already have their own system running. They just want to use our data streams to just double check whether they're just like checking their homework, right? Whether or not like they're correct, right? It's been very easy to use stream sharing through Confluent. Very, very easy. In fact, like you can ask my customers, I actually always demo Confluent all the time because I said, hey, look at all these real-time data feeds like streaming in front of you. One click share. Give me your email and you're good to go, right? You can push into production like today if you wanted to, right? Right after this call.
Yeah, I'm glad that feature is of so much use to you. For the audience, data stream sharing is something that is exclusive to Confluent. We make it extremely simple for anyone with a Confluent Cloud account to share a data stream, a topic, with anyone else with a Confluent Cloud account. And as Ethan mentioned, some of our partners in the analytics space have very similar features as well, but it's a pretty exciting feature, and I'm so excited Allium gets to use it to its fullest. And that's really the benefit of the Confluent data streaming platform, is it's not just the data streams or just the stream processing or just the support or the connectors. It's all these other value add features that you can really build your businesses around. And that's why I get so excited talking about the DSP. So tell me, I'm sure you never expected a question like this, but what's the future of data streaming and AI at Allium?
So I spent 6 years in NLP and AI and machine learning before starting Allium. So that's actually my background. Actually, for the first couple of years at Allium, people always ask me, why don't you go back to AI? Or like, what is your AI strategy on top of the crypto data or in this space? And I always go and say, I'm going to wait and see and like wait for a lot of the infrastructure scaffolding to be built. And then I would save a lot of time, buy, not build, same thing we're working with. It's almost like I did enough of the machine learning stuff myself to know that like, there's a lot of stuff that if I don't want to do it, I don't want to do it. Like, please let someone else do it. The good news is that there's been a Cambrian explosion of like 10,000 startups that you can work with and partner with to almost like build that next, a lot of the AI infrastructure already. And so how we're looking at it is that we already have an AI assistant on top of our data set, because a lot of our customers, they don't want to understand what schemas we have. They just want the answer, right? So the AI assistant has been very good at showing them which schemas to use and also crafting the right queries. And then we want to take that one step further, because I mentioned we want to be the data operating system. We want to get people to build your workflows on top of our data, right? And so we're building a lot of these primitives for people to go like, let's say want to reconcile all their like balances, so say their audits in one single place. Like, how do you get from that? And then like design the right primitive such that an AI agent can come in and just like automate a lot of that. And we think it starts with the data, because the data is the hard part, and I think we have a very strong foundation, and we're going to start building layer and layer. And I'm very pragmatic. As much as investors want to hear me say, we are AI first in everything, but like the bottleneck to the best AI models, best AI outcomes is the best data sets. And like that is what I've been focusing on since the beginning. Yeah.
I think it's a really good approach, Ethan, honestly. I know I'm certainly biased, but I really feel like all emerging tech all has a single crux, and that's the data. Like if your data is not ready, presentable, easily accessible, it doesn't matter what newfangled thing you're gonna introduce, you're gonna be limited by the data.
Yeah.
Our next segment is the Runbook, where we break down strategies to overcome common challenges and set your data in motion. So Ethan, tell me, what, other than Kafka, what is the top tool Allium relies on for data streaming today?
We use Apache Beam today. I think we use it on Dataflow, right? Yeah, Dataflow. We use Dataflow for it. Right now, for a lot of the streaming pieces, we run all these, write all these workers, just to basically extract all the right fields. Again, do all the custom smart contract parsing out, and then send it on a merry way. So I think that's one of the bigger tools we use for the real-time piece. Yeah.
Excellent. Beam. So are there any tools or approaches that you actively avoid? And that could be, specific to data streaming and event-driven architecture.
Okay, so because we have a lot of models, dbt models on Snowflake, running like Snowflake already, like all these like usual like dbt transformations, you know how to use them, but they don't perform in near real time, right? That's why you have to use something like Beam, right? But ideally, why do I need to replicate my code somewhere else in a different language, right? Different framework, right? And so it's not really a tool to avoid, but I think there have been many companies that, like the modern data stack maybe 4 or 5 years ago that have been trying to tackle this problem, right? I really wish someone solves it overnight, right? I still haven't really found that, at least it will solve at our scale, like just to be fair, you know what I mean? Like, so, because like it will save us a lot of time. But I think we've tried a number of them, and like for us, it's just like we are still finding that holy grail. But I actually don't think it will exist, because I've been hearing this. So I used to work on Apache Spark more than, again, when I was at Cloudera. I built this auto-config tool for like to prevent stuff from going out of memory, managing the Java memory heap so there's no ooms, and also like working in some of the Spark streaming tuning stuff. But Spark streaming back then was like mini batching, really. So like for me, like I'm like, yeah, I'm still waiting for that holy grail. Like I thought, like I'm still waiting for that. So
right. So avoid completely translating all of your code and your data to another system, make it all interoperable, or find things that are interoperable. I think that's a really good pattern. That's really good advice for anyone.
Yeah. And also just one nuance here, at least for the blockchain L space specifically, because the skill set that is needed to understand the smart contracts in this industry and then write high performant real-time code, there's not many people that have the intersection of skills. So it's actually a very labor intensive task and pretty expensive. So because a lot of the field, even if they know the crypto data, they only know SQL, but they don't know how to build an engineering system. And that is actually two different skill sets. So if we could unify that, we actually open up, it actually changes the way we operate significantly, instead of having two separate teams almost. Yeah.
Makes a lot of sense. You need like a multimodal tool that can, welcome anybody. For a lot of your customers to even adopt your services, they have to start with Confluent Cloud. So I'm curious, how do you get your customers to buy into data streaming? Now, I know you actually take them through the UI, but have you ever had any pushback? And were you able in those scenarios to convince them, yes, this is the right way to consume our data streams?
Through any sales process, you always have to educate them and tell them why it's good. I think for most people, it's human nature. Even if you know something is better, doesn't mean you'll do it, right? Like I should not drink. I should run more. I should exercise more. Everybody knows that. I need to be more hardworking or something, but no one actually I know I need to do it, but I'm not going to do it. It's so that's
We're
a lot
always battling what we should do versus what we want to do.
Yes. So I think on that regard, I think, of course, signing up for Confluent, obviously it's people are very scared about new vendors. Oh no, that's another part of my bill. I thought I'm only paying Allium. Why now I have to pay Allium plus someone else, right? So I think there's a lot of that friction involves, and a lot of it involves educating the customer how to actually make their lives easier. But also, if someone really wanted webhooks, we could do it. It's almost like we'll do it just to prove a point, and then they're like, okay, you know what? Let's go and do the let's use event bus instead. So I think that's really a part of the friction. And of course, for some of the bigger institutions, they can't just sign up for a new organization ID overnight, right? If it's a startup, yeah, they can do it within 1 minute, but they need to get IT approval, and that will take months, right? So obviously there's some frictions there. And so a lot of it is how do we meet them where they are? Maybe they're not using Confluent. How do we map it directly to maybe their other event buses? We can fan it out to another event bus to fan it to them in their own local environment. So we actually do a lot of those workarounds. Obviously it takes more time and effort, but you do what you have to do, right? So that's because at the end of the day, I strongly believe that not only are we the the blockchain data experts, but we also want to make sure we're like FedEx, right? We live to deliver, right? We will deliver the data wherever you are.
Yeah, wherever it is.
Wherever it is. We'll meet you whatever country you're in, whatever form factor you're in, whatever stack you want to use, we have to meet you where you're at. Yeah.
I like that. You just get it done. All right, so now let's shift gears and dive into the real hard-hitting content, the data streaming meme of the week. And this is a unique one because usually when I do a data streaming meme of the week, the person I'm interviewing is not the creator of the meme. See, I love this meme. So tell me what inspired you to make this?
Okay, so for this one, it's I think David Beckham and Porsche Spice, tell me really the truth, right? So it starts with it's free, be honest. No, it's open source, it's free. Really, you can run it for yourself for free, be honest. And then it ends with no, you really need, 3 full-time engineers, pay for infra, pay for data, pay for storage, pay for networking, certification, trainings, SRE team around it. And then it's really free, right? So I think I may have actually borrowed this from someone who talked about Confluent, to be honest. I think so. I don't take credit. I think you can see actually there's a URL. I didn't create this myself. I just reposted this, right? And so, but I reposted it because I'm also in the business of selling it, in the infrastructure space, and I see this a lot of the time because people always tell me that blockchain data is free. I can get it myself. I have a computer science degree. I can figure this out myself really easily. Blockchain is easy. This is smart contracts. Whatever. It's easy, and it goes back to the question of people never really take into account the total cost of ownership of maintaining and building a system, right? I think if you're doing a hackathon project, doesn't matter. But when you're an enterprise, you're a serious business, you want to build for the long term. That's where when you take in the total cost of ownership, that's when stuff that is free, there's a reason why it's free, because it's not really free, right? So I think that is really where, again, I mentioned at the start of our interview that I think as I matured, I would definitely say my first couple of years, I was one of those engineers that probably just said, I can do it myself. We should be doing it ourselves. This doesn't make any sense. Why are we paying this person? Pay me more money instead, and I'll do it. Type of thing. But I think as I matured, thankfully, I moved away from that. From this,
well, a couple comments there. One,
Yeah.
you're a startup. You guys are doing great. But I think other startups maybe, and you already figured this out, is that when you start working and your customers are going to be enterprises, they're going to have a certain level of expectation of uptime, of consistency. And that's where, using managed services can kind of really provide that to you, because maybe your team is still growing and your sales is outgrowing your engineering, your SREs. That managed service really kind of helps take away that consternation around, well, is this system going to be scalable? Like, do I need to worry about hiring 10 more people to scale at the growth we have? And the meme is really funny, and I realize you weren't the originator, but you're the spreader of it, which makes you just as important to the meme world. Someone once described this to me as free like a puppy. Like, I'm going to give you a puppy, but guess what? You got to feed the puppy. You got to take it to the vet. You got to house the puppy. So like free could actually mean very expensive when you take everything into account.
Exactly. And learn the term TCO, total cost of ownership. People don't realize that. People don't want to maybe come to terms with that sometimes, because also there's a lot of sunk cost fallacy as well, right? Because I'm already kind of 1 foot in, 1 foot out. So I'm sure you face that at Confluent, but also like I think every single startup founder in the B2B enterprise SaaS space or infra space will also kind of face it. It's that like how do you position it such that it makes sense for people to like build stuff on top of your service, right? Yeah.
Before we let you go, we're going to do a lightning round. Bite-sized questions, bite-sized answers, and that is BYTE. So it's like hot takes, but schema-backed and serialized. Are you ready?
Sure. Yeah, let's go.
All right, Ethan, what's something you hate about IT?
The what IT?
Just the word You're not the first person to give that answer, and I actually love that answer. What is the last piece of media you streamed?
Last piece of media I streamed, probably the air traffic control in Newark, because I'm gonna fly soon, so I'm kind of concerned about that. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah. Well, hopefully that comforted you. What's a hobby you enjoy that helps you think differently about working with data across a large enterprise?
Funnily enough, I do not a hobby, but I do like in reading a lot about fashion and enjoying fashion stuff, right? So. How does that relate to data, right? So I care a lot about this thing called data UX. So like if I design a data schema for a customer, right? If you have to do one more left join than you need to and get some nulls there, you as a data scientist or a data analyst, you will hate, you just like a little bit part of you kind of dies inside of it. And so like I care a lot about like that final presentation of the tables and schemas we deliver. And that's something that drives me. And like, because if you can design a schema that really has all the right information that's already, I wouldn't even say like proper normalized form, but in the very useful form to the use cases, like people will love it. And like at the end of the day, you reduce the cost of curiosity. You get people to explore more. And like, and a lot of that comes from like it's more like a sense of aesthetics and design. And like it just has to fit, like the data just has to work. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. I like it. It's the eye to detail that you get in the fashion industry. Can you name a book or resource that's influenced your approach to building event-driven architecture or implementing data streaming?
I think this is one of my favorite books I like to recommend as well is I think the Philosophy of Software Design by Osterhout, right?
Okay, great.
So I think one of the chapters he talked about like shallow design and shallow API design versus deep API design versus shallow API design, and like. In terms of influencing the data piece, again, like I think sometimes your customers don't want to know everything. They just you want to design an API or a schema that just shows just the right number of fields just to answer the question. Everything else, don't even tell them about it, right? Just if they really need it, like you can open the hood for them. So I think that book and that concept I learned from the book like many years ago, I really enjoy. That relates to like data, yeah.
No, it's great. What's your advice for a first-time chief data officer or somebody else with an equivalent impressive title?
So number one, I think I should patent this name, but my title on LinkedIn is Chief Data Plumber.
Oh, I like that. That's really good.
So that is my title. Please do not take it. I am the Chief Data Plumber already. But I think that advice is really, I think at the end of the day, like I think what a lot of data leaders would face is that like how do you align. You can build the best data system in the world, but you have, at the end of the day, you exist to fit that business need, the BI need of powering an application. Like, so you really have to just make sure that you align on that. If you're not aligned on that, it doesn't matter if you had the best shift left system that was optimized, whatever, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, are you driving the business results? And that's really the core there. Yeah.
That's good. That's really good advice. Now, Ethan, any final thoughts or anything to plug?
I mean, I think two parts of it. Like always hiring for amazing data. Amazing engineers who are just interested in data infrastructure in general. We're always hiring for that. If there's anyone out there also who ever needs blockchain data, just let us, just DM me, call me. I'm pretty responsive, but we're always hiring. I think what we like to say is that unfortunately, our infrastructure budget per engineer is higher than what we pay the engineer. So that's the scale we work with. But on the flip side, if you're joining a company, you have a lot of stuff to learn. Every platform, and obviously Confluent, and you'll be using a lot of it. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for joining me today, Ethan. It was absolutely a pleasure discussing this with you and having a chat. So for the audience, stick around, because after this, I'm going to give you my 3 top takeaways in 2 minutes. Wow, what a fantastic conversation with Ethan. Let's talk about those takeaways. So the first one that I'm going to be thinking about this quite a bit is how Allium is using data streaming to read once and deliver many times. So as Ethan mentioned, the way that you query blockchain, it's not super performant, it's prone to failure, and it's just not ideal for somebody building a real-time delivery system. Allium building something that they can retry and reliably read the data that they need, but then have it delivered many times through data streaming, a system that is specifically built for many things to read many times, between whether it's transactions, consumer groups, et cetera, a really interesting, not novel, but a really powerful way of using data streaming to serve their downstream customers. Ethan asked a question I think was really important. You can build it, but should you? I think this is something that everyone should think about, whether you're a startup or you're an enterprise. If there are well-established providers of a technology that have great uptime, have great total cost of ownership when you do an analysis, and have all these extra bells and whistles that make a system enterprise ready, like Confluent's data streaming platform, you should really consider, yeah, I can lift really heavy rocks, but should I, right? Is this where I want to spend my time? And as it pertains to an enterprise, is this where I want my engineers spending their time? Or should they be building things that are specific to my business logic, not doing undifferentiated heavy lifting? So I absolutely love that. And another thing that Ethan said is, you could build the system yourself like Allium's, but all you get is the raw data. And he said delivering raw data is just the start of your problem. And I couldn't agree more. So again, it comes back to that idea of shifting left, of getting closer as you can to your data source and take this uncleansed, this raw data and turning it into something that is a data product. And doing that as early as you can so that those data products can be used internally at your business or maybe externally to your customers. So wow, just some really fantastic takeaways just in terms of how to use data streaming and some things that you should be thinking about as you start your data streaming journey. That's it for this episode of Life is But a Stream. Thanks again to Ethan for joining us, and thanks to you for tuning in. As always, we're brought to you by Confluent. The Confluent data streaming platform is the data advantage every organization needs to innovate today and win tomorrow. Your unified platform to stream, connect, process, and govern your data starts at confluent.io. If you'd like to connect, find me on LinkedIn. Tell a friend or coworker about us, and subscribe to the show so you never miss an episode. We'll see you next time.